Anti-Afro Spengalis. What prompted this video was a live stream that Rev G had this morning, and I'm hoping he will make that live stream public because the subject was rape culture in the Black community. And in the near future, he's going to be having a guest speaker who did a thesis out of the University of Connecticut, Odia Kane, MPH, Masters of Public Health, The Denial of Black Victimhood, Examining Attitudes of Sexual Assault and Victim Blaming on a College Campus, a Continued Analysis. And she's going to be coming to visit Rev G's platform in the near future. Hopefully everybody will be willing to go and participate. But the live stream was very interesting. And during that live stream, Rev G brought up Kent State University. This is an excellent opportunity to demonstrate to those out there who aren't really familiar with how anti-fraud warriors were working before we came to YouTube. We were involved in many different projects designed to make sure the truth about Umar was front and center because he had been so dishonest about how he was getting these hyena yelps. So Kent State University is one of those places. Anti-fraud warriors were out in full force. And of course, at that time, we weren't calling ourselves anti-fraud warriors, but we were then anti-fraud warriors. We have continued to be anti-fraud warriors, and we will always be anti-fraud warriors. We even had an anti-fraud warrior who lived less than an hour from the university and was insistent that the letter that this person was going to write was going to be dropped off at the president's office. And this anti-fraud warrior did just that. Several other anti-fraud warriors wrote letters. And as a matter of fact, those anti-fraud warriors are still involved. Some are on YouTube and some never came to YouTube. They have Facebook. And it's not Umar Johnson related, but they're not involved with Umar Johnson content on YouTube. And then Rev G was involved. I had known Rev G for about a year and a half by this time. This was 2016, early 2016. He had taken up a strategy with the community-based agencies because of Umar Johnson's homophobic and just horrific statements about the LGBT community. I had undertaken the strategy working with the faculty who had worked very hard to put in place with the university a very strong sexual assault response program / team. And Umar Johnson had been making all of these just outrageous statements. And this is before that offensive thoughtish personality disorder. And he was not vetted. That was the angle, because he was claiming to be a family therapist. So we had all these people doing different things for the Kent State University hyena yelp, trying to see if we could make sure Umar Johnson didn't move forward, because frankly, he was living a lie, people. He lied. That's how he got that hyena yelp. He snuck in under the radar. And his vile declarations about women and sex in public forums. He had gone over to Oakland, California, and was talking about dildos to the audience. And there were children and elderly people telling the Black women, well, don't you be depending on those dildos, because when a man comes around, he can't please you, or some crap. He was off the chain, people. He was out of control, trying to get these secret dates going, confidential dates with the quote doctor. I mean, here's the situation going on. I got to give you this background. Umar had pretty much cut loose most of the men who were his support system because he became so full of himself. He had that GoFundMe was up and running. The GoFundMe was up and running, and that's where he was getting most of his money. So he cut loose all the brothers because the brothers started pressuring him because of inappropriate sexual exploits. I'll say that. Or attempts. Let's say attempts. It became too much. So Umar was feeling himself. He didn't need anybody. He was pretty much out of control. So let me tell you why everything blew up. leading up to this event, which was in February 2016, articles started to appear in the local newspaper that one of their professors was under investigation for his ties to ISIS. And here's a photo on the screen, and I posted article at the bottom. Check it out. This became even more splintering because people on campus were incredibly angry with him. Not only was he supposedly, and it was never proven, by the way, not only was he suspected of ISIS ties, but be careful, people. When people want to say what you say on the internet doesn't get back. So that was an issue. And then faculty was also upset because he had a history of making sexually inappropriate comments to women. Hello. So the faculty was not happy that Umar Johnson happened to slither onto campus. And the way they found out was we went to student affairs and we went to the president's office. The president was not even aware that Umar Johnson was trying to get on campus. And while students have their rights, the university has an absolute right to step in and say, no, this is not happening. So this continued to go on and on and on. Then comes the actual day of the event. Or no, back up, the day before the event. Because Umar had been on campus and he was doing something else. The day before the event is when the fireworks started. And why did the fireworks start? Because the FBI was on the campus and the university had been told that we might be showing on the campus because we're going to do some interviews. The university had no idea the FBI was going to show up the day before and be there the day of the event. So there was panic. What do you do? Umar is trying to get this hyena yelp to go off, and they have all these protests going on, and they are essentially the same type of rhetoric. This supposed ISIS professor and Umar Johnson. It was a disaster. People were frantic. Everybody running around. The media got involved. And so the president became paralyzed because she didn't know what to do. Okay, if I say Umar can't do this, then there could be even a bigger protest that will call attention to him. And if we let him move forward, the FBI is actually on campus as we speak. They may say that we have someone else on our campus that's involved potentially with madness. And the faculty was pressuring the president. Do something. This person shouldn't be here. So what the president ended up doing is telling the student affairs, student government leaders to move forward with the process. And I actually support that, because if you need to make a decision, take it through the process. And the process is to take it to student government committee and they would vote. She wanted to see what they would say. Yes, the president still could have stepped in and said, this is over, but decided in the end, which is a good decision, don't stifle the actual process and let it play out. And if the vote comes down to Umar, no go, then she was going to boot him. If it came down to Umar, still thumbs up, they were going to convene and have a meeting to decide what was going to happen. So they had the student meeting. The FBI's on campus. It was a disaster, people. The student government voted, it was very close, to go ahead and allow Umar Johnson to speak. And in the end, the president decided not to challenge that decision because she felt it was going to cause even more attention to be brought to the university. But the president had made it very clear, had she had known Umar had been discussing coming to campus, she would have moved much sooner to disallow him in terms of this speech. She would not even been allowed to come there and have the speech. Now, she wasn't saying she was going to bar him from the campus, but she didn't want the speech going off. And even the campus police got involved. Obviously, they have to be involved. And they helped the president decide, since it had not been confirmed that Umar had caused any campus disruptions. He had been canceled at other places, but they actually called other universities. They had a whole list, and they wanted to know, did his presence cause any sort of violence? Were there any disruptions? Were the police called? And the answer at that point was no. So in all good conscience, hey, take it through the process. But the president did make it clear she would not have allowed Umar had they known sooner. Now, here's the downside to Umar thinking he's slick by going in under the radar. You're talking about a $7,000 to $10,000 difference in pay, because he only got like $2,500 or $3,000 out of this hyena Yelp and hotel expenses. But when you're brought on as a faculty member, they keep you hooked up with a nice motel. You get per diem, which means all your meals, your entertainment, rental car, and you get paid. If you're at a large university, he probably would have landed $15,000. And I know this because I used to write these requisitions for these speakers. But Umar elects to go in under the radar. So faculty and administration isn't aware of his presence until the last minute. But let me tell you what happened to this ISIS dude. You know, after 9/11, they passed the Patriot Act, which gave the government a lot more leeway when it comes to prosecuting, when it comes to getting search warrants, when it comes to wiretaps. But they were never able to really link him to ISIS. And they were pissed about that. So they stayed on his ass, and they finally got him. They had to be on his ass. They finally were able to get federal charges on him. And word is that they were saying, we don't give a damn what he does, city, state, whatever he does, we're going to make sure it's a federal case. That's how hard they were driving against this dude. And you would think that knowing this, he would watch his step. So he ended up getting in a whole heap of trouble, making threats on Facebook using a different name. When are people going to learn? This dude is just like Umar. But the FBI really have their radar on this guy because of his comments about ISIS. So what ended up happening, he was eventually terminated. They did not give him an option to retire. He had worked there for 20-something years. They fired him. So they finally got what they wanted. What is the motto of the story? Watch what you say and do online. And the other demonstration I'm showing to you, the work of the anti-fraud warriors. We didn't win every situation with Umar, but we won the majority of projects that we set out to inform the public about Umar. And what has been the outcome? Umar Johnson has been essentially eradicated from universities. He had to try harder and harder to get on, but we were on top of it, and we were able to prevent him from going onto university campuses. Listen, people, for people saying you're messing up Umar's money, Umar was coming onto campus unvetted. That was a concern. He did not verify his doctorate degree. He was not a therapist, although he was trying to say he was a therapist. His language is discriminatory. He excludes people, and that is not what our communities are about, especially if you're getting federal funds. These attitudes and beliefs, you are free to have them, but the university is not supposed to be paying for them. So when people started to ask Umar Johnson for more and more documentation, he became more and more rattled and tried harder and harder to get in under the radar. But we had a lot of people on the ground. This is pre-YouTube. People holler about YouTube. This is before we even came to YouTube. So we've been doing this, and we don't feel we have wasted our time. We don't feel our progress or our efforts are lost because we've achieved many things. Umar has not been allowed to go on a public stage and really truly benefit based on his lies. Hit and miss, but not like it was before, people. The GoFundMe was removed. He is still under investigation from at least 3 agencies. Umar is not in the clear, and investigations takes time. So people who don't know what the hell they're talking about are envious of what we have done as anti-fraud warriors. We are not taking down a black man who's serving the community. How in the heck is Umar helping the community? By staring lovingly into shit-filled broken toilets? With dead animals in an abandoned bomb shelter? By denigrating black women and black families, by lying about who he is and giving advice that's dangerous, deadly, and deceptive, in addition to unethical, for not accounting for a single solitary cent that he collected in God knows how many years. How is that serving the community? And continuing to change the dates of when the abandoned bomb shelter will open as a supposed school. That's helping the community? We are making sure a black man who's causing harm to the community isn't able to continue what he's been doing. There is a very big difference. You don't see us going and protesting Lord Jamar's father-in-law school. Why would we do something like that? You don't see us protesting Q Butter school. Why would we do that? These are things that are benefiting our people. Umar Johnson is no benefit to our people, and he is using other people's titles, other professional titles, in order to big himself up. And that's not acceptable. People can give Umar whatever money they want, but when it comes to Umar accessing K through 12 schools and colleges and universities, we have everything to say about it. And our voices were heard. Most of these hyena yelps were canceled. Umar simply knew he was not going to go through faculty and be vetted because he would not pass the process. So when you hear Umar Johnson getting on these interviews saying, well, the white man ain't going to let me on the school campus unless I get bullshit, they don't know he's coming. He doesn't go through faculty. He gets $2,500, $3,000, and that is it. But he knows it's guaranteed money. That's why he was pursuing it. Most of the colleges and universities and all of the K-12 schools will not let Umar Johnson on campus unless he sneaks. And when he sneaks, the people who were responsible have received severe consequences. And we have confirmed that. You have to make sure when you are undertaking a project that you know what you're doing. It is not about swashbuckling someone because you don't, quote, like them. I know that he's perpetrating a fraud and he's threatening everyone. He has to resort to threats of violence in order to prevent us from speaking our mind, from freely expressing ourselves. But he wants to say whatever he wants, whenever he wants. The truth be damned. One thing you cannot deny, the anti-fraud warriors are here to stay. We don't care what anybody else has to say about us. We know we have a noble cause. We are law-abiding. We set a good example. And most of all, we never forget to tell you to heed the warning. Buyer, beware.